Wufude Sanko, dead, was the leader of RAF. Jonathan Koroma at large, and he's said to be under the protection of the British, even though the British are actively looking for him. With the Mosquito, dead, they pursue peripheral characters. And these peripheral characters were the peacemakers. Issa Sese, Maurice Kalon, were the ones who signed the Lomé Peace Accord. Make no mistake, the RAF was never defeated at the battlefront. The war in Sierra Leone, 10-year war ended at the peace level, the peace talks in Lomé. Yet here are the peacemakers who are in jail. Why? Because an American intelligence officer, David Crane, was appointed the prosecutor for this court. The first reason that motivated the intervention of the United States was because there was an allegation that Al-Qaeda was supplying weapons to the Revolutionary United Front of Sierra Leone and Charles Taylor. So the first Americans who arrived at the special court were the FBI. After the investigation, they found the allegations were false. Then the idea of creating a special court for Sierra Leone emerged overnight. The special court of Sierra Leone had no business with peace in Sierra Leone. It did not bring peace to Sierra Leone. What brought peace to Sierra Leone was the Peace and Reconciliation Commission that was set up by the Sierra Leonean government, and that gave amnesty to most of the combatants, some of them who are today in the armed forces, the security forces. One of them is today one of the bodyguard to the president of Sierra Leone. Now, let's get quickly to the ICC. When the idea of setting up the ICC was mooted, Africa threw its weight behind the ICC. By July 2009, 30 African countries are signed to the ICC treaty. But Africa and Africans did not know at the time that they were signing their death warrants. Because the ICC has ended up to be a tool of neocolonialism. For its 10 years of existence, the ICC has focused on Africa and a humiliating presence on the African continent. The perception to the rest of the world that Africans are criminal and that the blacks are inherently criminal and that they have a propensity to kill each other and that the culture of impunity was rife on the continent and that these angels of death, so-called the ICC, had to come to the rescue. Let me tell you, far from the truth. Because the question being asked about Africa is about the proliferation of weapons. Who supplied the weapons? Who supplied the weapons to the RPF? Who supplied the weapons? The United States and many other countries in the Western world. They supplied the weapons. What they call the foreign aid given to victims in Rwanda. I traveled to Rwanda almost about 6 times and discovered that the purported victims, the beneficiaries of this foreign aid, were not the victims of the conflict in Rwanda. They were the Tutsi aggressors who migrated from Uganda and attacked Rwanda. These are the victims whose children are given scholarships. These are the people who are portrayed as victims today. The rare Tutsi in Rwanda have never benefited from any foreign aid. In fact, they are not being considered as victims at all. The victims in the eyes of the West, the United States and the West, are the RPF. And it is because of this impunity and the abundance of resources at their disposal and the weapons given to them that they can go to the Congo and kill with impunity and massacre 6 million people. Rwanda overnight becomes a producer of some of the basic minerals that we knew that were found only in the Congo. And the ready market for these minerals are found in the West. Now, the ICC, as I've said, and as one of the former the previous panelists informed you, is a tool of neocolonialism. It is the tool using the practice of international law by which the West has recognized Africa. Africa has lost its independence. Africa has lost its soul. Africa has lost the vestige of any image that the cosmetic independence that was granted to Africa portrayed to the world. Indeed, a neo-colonialist puppet, Mr. Ocampo, himself admitted this so many times that he was actually out to pursue the neo-colonial agenda of the West. At the end of his mandate, even though the ICC has what we call a universal mandate, his final address was to Kenya. He addressed Kenya and the Kenyan conflict. And the reason that he addressed the Kenyan conflict was because of the interest of the West, the neo-colonial agenda, in imposing a puppet regime over Kenyans. Now, very quickly, because time is running against me, I must salute the courageous spirit of lawyers in this halls, particularly lawyers who have participated in the trials in Arusha, at the ICC, in Sierra Leone, because you stood out against the rest of the world. It is your heroic participation in these trials and the stoicity with which you presented the arguments that has finally awakened the conscience of the African Union. African Union has finally heard your argument and found your argument to be credible. So on this premise, the African Union started by rejecting the ICC, that they will not cooperate with the ICC. But above all, the African Union decided now to give the African Court on People and Human Rights criminal jurisdiction in order to handle African crimes perpetrated in Africa and find impunity on the continent. The unfortunate thing is this: the people, the leaders, some of the leaders, African leaders, are puppets themselves who are planted there by the same Western powers that we are talking about today. And because of this, access to the African court has been limited. I was one of the first lawyers to have a case against the African Union. The second case against the African Union was filed by me. The first was Falana versus the African Union, in which he challenged the limitation of access to Africans to the African court. Except the protocol to the court is amended to give free and universal access to all Africans. Criminal jurisdiction will only help to shield the dictators on the continent and perpetrators of crimes from prosecution by Africans themselves.